I have a confession. I can't paint clouds. Well, that's not entirely true. You start with a big blue background, a couple of blobs of white paint. Blob's your uncle, you've got yourself a cloud. Or an iceberg in a vast ocean. This isn't so bad. So, do you actually like Coca-Cola? See, it's very easy to abstract clouds. Most people don't need a lot of information to be able to bridge the gap and make an educated guess. If it's large, it's white, and it's on a blue background, chances are, it's not me on picture day, it's a cloud in the sky. If there's one thing I know, it's large and it's white. But I don't want educated guesses. I want an idiot to look at my painting and go, yup, that there's a cloud. We're going to look at some examples of art that inspires me, and we're going to see what we can learn from them individually, and then we're going to put it all together, and we're going to create a cloud painting. Let's get it. Yes, I know, you wanted me to dive right into the masters. Well, I did. This is The Wind Rises by Studio Ghibli, and whether you're a fan of animation or not, you can appreciate the art in these films. I personally have always been a fan of the clouds and the skies. Shut up, bird. They're vast and they're filled with emotion. They really make you feel what's going on in the scene. And you have no doubt seen this still, in particular, on the internet. I mean, it's every third swipe on Pinterest. Most importantly for us, they are easy to understand. They are simple, yet highly effective. So, let's dive into it. So at first glance I thought, this is actually pretty scary. But then I decided, let's just focus on this section. Kind of resembles a ball, doesn't it? Balls aren't scary. Hurry up, come on, let's go. Okay, I'll be out there soon. I'm just an old man in the changing room. Quite a workout. Most of the time. They are very easy to shade though. Well, if it resembles a ball, it must shade like a ball. Does that logic kind of hold up, I guess? And if I take this ball here that we have, and we identify that, well, we have a highlight. We have the highlight. We have a mid-tone, which is less than we're showing here, but we still do have the mid-tone. It kind of wraps in along here. We have a lot more of a highlight. We have the mid-tone. And then we have the shadow in there. Shadow. And you see the little wisps down here? They're more noticeable in other areas, like here, but we do have the reflected light. So then once you realize that clouds are kind of just lumpy balls.
What did he say?
What am I, a doctor? You realize that, well, I actually picked too small of a ball, and this is a much larger and bumpier ball. So we got the shadow in there. As you can see the shadow. I mean, it wraps down this way because it's got a cloud in front of it, but it continues down this way. And then you have a sliver of a mid-tone. And then you have the highlight in there. You even have, through here, the reflected light. Okay, so the takeaway there is that clouds are just lumpy balls. You guys learning anything from this? I am a terrible teacher and an even worse student. Here's the work of Calvin Liang. He is one of my all-time favorite artists and, you know, criminally underrated. I mean, I'm going purely off of follower count, and he probably doesn't even give a shit about how many followers he has. Which is how it should be if you're an artist. It's amazing how many fabulous artists have 0 followers, and then vice versa is also true. Terrible artists with tons and tons of followers. I mean, there is so much that you can learn from Calvin Liang, but we are going to look at color. He truly is a master at mixing the paint. We're going to be looking at these 3 paintings. Each of them are slightly different times of day. This one is at daytime. This one looks to be in the afternoon. You can tell by the long shadows. And this one is clearly a sunset. You can tell by the title, Sunset in Laguna Beach. We're going to break down the skies and the clouds into lumpy balls. That's right, lumpy balls. We have our highlight here. We have the midtones, the shadows, and then even you can see reflected light in parts of the clouds. So here they are in comparison with one another. You can kind of see the change between a daytime, afternoon, and then the evening sky. So the first key takeaway is don't reach for the white. None of these highlights are perfectly, brilliantly white. See, I, like a child, when I paint clouds, reach for the black and I reach for the white and I mix them in different shades, and that's how I paint my clouds. You think cloud, you think grey. You don't think creamsicle. This is a creamsicle. This one especially, straight out of the freezer, creamsicle. Well, very rarely do you use white, and I used to use white all the time for highlights in my clouds, so this is very interesting. The next key takeaway that I was thinking is the warmth. Typically, like I said, I think of clouds, I think of greys, and I think of blues. But there's a lot more warmth in these clouds than I was expecting. I mean, this is like an orange. It is an evening sky, so that's probably why it is orange, but even the afternoon sky, there is a lot more warmth in there than I was expecting, a lot more yellow tones. Even this band, it kind of feels like a very warm grey, like it's almost mixed with a pink. And then the next thing that I thought was an important takeaway, whether it is or isn't, first of all, I was like, well, in these 2 examples, the sky gets lighter as it approaches the horizon, which, you know, I'm looking outside now, it's pretty true. But then in the evening one, it actually looks darker. And then I kind of remembered basic physics, and I know it has something to do with just how light diffracts in the atmosphere, and blue has a very... I'm entering into physics territory, and I'm not qualified to talk about it.
Why is the sky blue? So it turns out the sky is blue because sunlight is scattered in all directions by gases and particulates in the Earth's atmosphere, and blue light is scattered more.
And, yeah, hopefully you learned something. I don't know. On to the next study, I guess. Okay, now we're going to look at an artist specifically for the technique. See, similar to trees, clouds are one of those subject matter that it's kind of hard to tell what goes on first. The sky or the cloud. Now, there's probably many different ways to do it, but you know, why don't we take heed from an expert and a master? This is the artwork of Christopher Long. Paintings like this are invaluable to beginner artists. It doesn't mean you need to directly copy paintings like this. I think he uses a palette knife. That should never be the goal to copy another artist. It should always be used as a tool to develop your own style. In what order did he paint this? Typically, the thinnest paint is what was applied first. This one seems to have the most layered on top of it. Mid-grey tone, which he's serving as the backdrop for his clouds, and then this also flatter blue tone, which is serving for the sky. He builds on top of it, he goes dark, reinforces his shadows, and then he kind of bounces back and forth between his reflected light and his highlights for both the clouds and then also for the sky. So from that, you can kind of deduce that he's using a mid-tone for the clouds and the sky to kind of loosely sketch in the overall layout and the composition. And obviously you want a starting point, you want to know where you're going to build from. And he starts with a mid-tone to do that. Then he bounces back between his reflected light and his shadows to further define the clouds. And then he uses his highlights of both the clouds and then also the sky to define and cut in around those clouds and give them shape. Because clouds aren't all soft edges. They do have a lot of soft edges, but they can be quite sharp. And we've seen in previous examples where it is quite sharp in some cases. You can also see in some ways that he paints this highlights, he drags it over his sky to create those kind of wisps on his clouds. So there is a lot to learn here in terms of order and how we apply paint. So good job. Okay, to summarize then, clouds are lumpy yellow balls that are warmer than you think, not as bright either, don't use white, and we start with a mid-tone and then work from there, back and forward from darks and lights. Oh, and use the sky to define the cloud. Right, seems pretty straightforward. Let's give it a go. Let's give it a go. Oh yeah, very nice.
My child, what are you doing here?
I'm just getting some reference shots, don't mind me.
How did you get here?
How do you think?
How do you plan to get back?
What? It has been about a week since I filmed that first half, and since then, we've had a heat wave. And I'm not one to exaggerate, but it's about a bajillion degrees in here. And for those of you using Trump numbers, it is about a gazillion Fahrenheit. So I'm gonna get progressively sweatier as this goes on. Are we cool with this? Because I'm not cool. I'm already clammy. Moist. I might need to do a little bit of a refresher to remind myself what we learned previously. I was too focused on balls last week. That's kind of like the only thing I remember. Why can I not get this? Why do I not have a knife around here? Oh, I know why. The incident. 1 second. First, we're going to start off by covering the canvas with a mid-tone like Christopher Long did. Good to just get the white off there, so good fresh start. The Wind Rises. We learned that the actual form of clouds is, it can be simplified just down to the shape of a ball. A lump. And then from Calvin Liang, we learned that, well, the most surprising one that I learned was you don't instantly reach for the white. I always make my scenes too light.
Huh?
And not dark enough. And then also we're going to warm them up a little bit. So I do have a reference photo that we're going to use today. Last week I was a little worried that I was going to have to use someone else's reference photo, but the minute I stepped out of my shed, I was greeted by this beautiful blue sky with these fantastic clouds. I walked down to the beach and I took this photo. We're fun with it. This is still, we're learning. We're learning, you and I don't know anything. And if you're watching this video, if you've made it this far, and you're thinking that I do know something, I apologize. I don't. You might know more than me, and if you do, you should let me know where I'm going wrong in the comments. Let's just, let's lower our standards. Let's not raise them. Absolutely not. Let's lower them to the ground, all the way down, 6 feet under, bury them. Bury those standards. All right, I'm excited, let's go. Now, I'm bad at mixing paint and color. It's probably my biggest flaw. I do also think that the more colors I mix into it, the more mistakes I make by adding more colors to try and fix it and match the color that I'm after, it tends to create a richer color. This is kind of the mid-tone that we're gonna go for. I have yellow ochre, I have cadmium red, and I have radiant turquoise blue. I undoubtedly will need more colors, but we'll see how it goes. And you wanna do this very loose, I will say. I'm not worrying about the boats. Let's see how the painting turns out first, before we start adding boats. I mean, they're in the water, they're not really doing too much with the sky, so if I mess those up, it doesn't matter. This is about clouds, guys, not boats. Would you like to see one about boats? I can do boats. I can do boats. Before we just dive in and start painting our clouds with its darks and its lights, we have to define the form. Similar to what they did in The Wind Rises, where we discussed those lumpy balls, we have to define our lumpy balls. So if that's kind of what we were looking at before for where our highlight was, coming out from an angle, very clear directional light, this time the light is behind us. So our lumpy ball actually looks a little bit more like this. So don't hate me for picking a bad reference, but I was just over the moon that I even found a reference photo, so you should be happy. And we're going to make the most of this. Come on, we're going to make the most of this. Maybe. You know, no matter how hard you try, you will get paint on yourself. I have mixed what I thought was an appropriate dark. But I went back and I looked at Calvin Liang's color charts, the balls that we did, and it was a lot cooler than what I was expecting. So what I've done instead is I have added a little bit of burnt umber, which is, it's a brown, so it's essentially just a very, 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 very dark red. In my mind, we don't want cold clouds, we want surprisingly warm clouds. They're going to stop resembling balls now, and they're going to start resembling clouds, because that's what we need them to do. Up until this point, I haven't really been concerned with the shape of my cloud, the outline, the edge. In fact, I've given very little regard to it. I've just been, putting it in as I see fit. It's only when we get to the highlights, not the light tones, the highlights, that we start to define that edge, because we'll use the lights of both the cloud and then also the sky to shape it. I want to start putting the sky in, because like from our studies with Calvin Liang, the sky on a sunny day went from a dark blue to a lighter tone at the bottom. And I think it's important to start putting that in now, so I don't have to worry about trying to blend it perfectly next to the cloud. I can come in later and define that cloud edge with the highlights, like I just mentioned. So let's move on and let's do the sky a little bit first before we start doing the lighter tones of our cloud. I have mixed the light tone, and it is pretty much just a combination of the colors that I used before, but with a lot more white and a lot more radiant turquoise blue. Because this is a daylight photo, it's not a sunset photo or an evening photo, it's not going to be the creamsicle lumpy ball that we talked about earlier. It's going to be a brighter, cooler tone, like the daylight one. It's a very loose reference, isn't it, But that's the beauty of being an artist, is you can call everything a loose reference if it doesn't turn out well. So this is a very loose reference. I'll be honest with you guys, at this stage I'm a little worried that it's not going to turn out the way I want it to. I'm really hoping once we start adding those highlights and the definition to the edge, it's gonna pop. But oopsies. Now I have started to redefine the darks, add more lumps to it, more definition to the cloud interior, and I've swapped to a smaller brush, so that should allow me to do that. We keep going until it's good. Scrubbing it in there, creating higher contrast between the highlights and the darks. Okay, this is the part we have all been looking forward to, highlights. It's going to be a lot of back and forward at this stage, but we are moving on to a very near, it's very hard for me not to reach for the white, but it's a very close white. I have actually added a little bit of ruby violet with the blue and the white, ever so slightly. I don't know why, but it just feels right. I think I need to move away from the cloud a little bit. I'm going to work on the surroundings, and then I'm going to go back and address the sky, because it still feels slightly off to me, but I'm not bright enough to be able to figure out what it is. So I'm going to step back a little bit, work on the other things, then I'm going to come back and have a look at it. Hey, guess what? I still don't like it. I'm hot and I'm bothered, and I can't figure out why I don't like it. I made the midtone too dark. So pray for me. Back where I left off, using the highlights now to redefine the cloud. I lightened the whole cloud, so hopefully it feels a little better. Feels a little better to me. I'm still a long ways off from perfecting a cloud, and I'm sure you're all going to tell me in the comments how poorly I did. You better tell me. I'll probably end up making another video just because this one isn't going to turn out too well. So I look forward to hearing your tips and tricks for painting clouds. So I don't love it, but I am, weirdly, having fun. It's around about this stage that I forget everything I've been taught before. I stop following a plan and I just start improvising and having a good time. I have been unquestionably loose with this painting. Listen, not every painting I do is going to be good. As long as you're enjoying it, I think that should stand for something. And I am having a good time. Who let me have fun? Who? I'm going to add a little Canadian flag that was blowing in the wind. Over here, maybe? I'm not too sure. While I talk to you about what I like about this painting, let's start with what I like about this painting, because that is ultimately what it's all about, finding what you enjoy in the art that you create. I like the deep blue of the sky defining the cloud. I think it gives kind of an outline to the cloud, and it's more almost cartoony, it's more painterly I'm not trying to be a realistic painter. I don't like realism at all. So I do appreciate that kind of outline. I also appreciate in areas where I have those highlights shining through from the underside of the sphere. Now, what do I not like? Well, the list is very long, but ultimately I think the cloud shape doesn't really appeal to me. Perhaps I was a little too loose with my reference and tried to wing it a little too hard. Perhaps I'm being a little too harsh on myself. Perhaps it will grow on me the next couple of days as it sits here and I look at it from my desk, but at the moment I'm not particularly happy with it. I have had fun painting. I have felt like I've learnt a lot, but I'm still a ways off from being able to paint a good cloud. Well, I don't know if you learnt anything, but I hope you did. I feel like I learnt one or two things. Alright, well that really is all I have time for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I've had a great time painting this morning. I feel like I've learnt a lot. Let me know what you liked and what you didn't like. And as of right now, I am a hot, sweaty mess, and I need to get inside and address the beads of sweat that are going down my lower back and further. So I bid you adieu, and please like, comment, subscribe, and follow along for more learning experiences. Alright, love you.